Michael Popok, Legal AF. Donald Trump's at it again, blaming other people for Jan 6th, blaming Nancy Pelosi, blaming General Mark Millie. Everybody's responsible for the crime scene that is Jan 6, except for the person who actually did it, which is Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump has just filed a new brief. What else? In the D.C. election interference case, on time, that should be news. Donald Trump actually didn't miss a deadline. On time, he filed his motion or supplemental motion concerning his request by Judge Chutkan that all 4 of the criminal counts be dismissed against him, especially the 2 for obstruction of an official proceeding. And he leads off, I presume this is what you do when you write briefs, with your strongest argument. His strongest argument? Nancy Pelosi did it. Mark Millie did it. I didn't do it. And you might be thinking to yourself, that's all he's got? A random stray clip of Nancy Pelosi from like the back of a car with a mask on after Jan 6th, in which she made a stray comment, in which she acknowledged that there were policing and security plan problems on Capitol Hill on January 6th, and Mark Millie making a comment that in one of his many testimonies that there was a discussion about the National Guard use before Jan 6th. What about all the other things that these people have said? What about all the things that Mark Millie has said, particularly about Donald Trump being derelict in his duty as commander-in-chief? They ignore that. This is the cherry picking that goes on constantly in all of Donald Trump's filings. The original brief that he filed a year ago, and then comparing it, laying it next to the one I'm going to talk to you about now, it's about the same, but they have a new case that they need to discuss. They think, Donald Trump thinks they're the winner of a case in front of the United States Supreme Court that preceded the immunity decision, and we call it shorthand by its name, Fisher, the U.S. versus Fisher case. And in Fisher, the Supreme Court said that one of the counts for obstruction of an official proceeding, we call it the 1512 count, was improperly used and charged by the prosecutors. They overcharged the case against the Jan 6th insurrectionists because they found that that particular statute required that there be not only corrupt intent to obstruct, but there actually be a interference with evidence or destruction of evidence or the use of false evidence. When Ketanji Brown Jackson participated in that, along with Sotomayor, they made clear that that could include, in Judge Chutkan's review, things like the fake elector certificates. And that's how the superseding indictment, which Jack Smith got from a grand jury after the immunity decision to ensure that it would comply with the immunity decision by the Supreme Court, he made sure that they leaned into the fake elector certificate. So if you look at the 165-page brief, for instance, just filed, and I've done about 6 passes through it here for Legal AF and the MeidasTouch Network, you'll see how they lean in, Department of Justice, with some of their 71 witnesses against Donald Trump to talk about the pressure campaign and the use of fake electors, the involvement of Eastman, of Bannon, of Giuliani, of Chesborough, of Roman, to facilitate this use of fake elector certificates, false evidence. And that should still be able to survive under 1512. That's the argument. But Donald Trump, he's got to be heard because since he wrote his original brief in October, this new brief that just got filed last night, we had the Fisher decision in between. So I get it. I get why they needed to supplement it. Let's start, before I get to the clips of his blaming, let's start with how they started it all off last October. Same motion, just been supplemented. I'll just read you the first 2 paragraphs because this will set your mind in the right direction for what to expect for the rest of this hot take. Here's Donald Trump and his lawyers on this very motion last October. Targeting an audience other than this court, the prosecution's indictment in this matter rants endlessly about President Trump's politics and in a shockingly un-American display of authoritarianism accuses him of crimes for having and expressing the wrong opinions. Buried at the end of this diatribe are conclusory statements that Trump somehow violated criminal law. Oh, poor Donald Trump. Talk about gaslighting and projecting. It's the Department of Justice's politics that's driving this. It's their authoritarianism. Okay, now let's fast forward. Now, it's only a 7-page supplement. Judge didn't say he only had 7 pages, but that's all Donald Trump has. This is the reason, again, Donald Trump asked, pretty please, can I file my brief against the 185 pages of detailed evidence against me with 71 witnesses? Can I do that after the election, ma'am? like a seventh grader. Can I do the book report after Christmas holiday? I don't want the American people to understand that I don't have anything to respond to those 165 pages of detailed evidence, the 71 witnesses, the hundreds of thousands of pages of documents and recordings, and the fact that my phone was hacked, or the another 200 pages that's coming in another 2 weeks into the public. I got nothing. And so when you got nothing, you say things in an aggressive way, and then you get the hell out of there. That's why this is like 14 pages. That's it. His life and liberty is hanging in the balance. The best they can come up with is like 10 or 11 pages. All right. So remember, when you, and I've said this before as a sort of a tutorial, being a practicing lawyer for 32 years, when you have, when you're organizing your argument to make it persuasive in advocacy, in adversarial advocacy, you have to have some organizing principles. Usually it's a version of recency, primacy and recency. You put your best argument first, primacy. You put your second best argument last, recency, and you kind of stick in the middle some filler if you need it. You might have three great arguments, but that's sort of the organizing principles. And you have to have thematics, and you have to make it, it's like journalism. You have to, don't bury the lead, and then you have to explain it and tie it together. Donald Trump doesn't really operate, or his lawyers, by those principles, but assuming they did, what is the first thing he says in the new filing? Let me read it to you, and then I'm going to go to a couple of clips. Of course we have, right? Investigative reporting on Legal AF. It says, the superseding indictment, which is the new indictment, stretches generally applicable statutes beyond their breaking point, based on false claims that President Trump is somehow responsible for the events at the Capitol on Jan 6. He was just wandering by. He was just on a Capitol tour that went awry. I love this somehow. It's so cavalier in rewriting history. The special counsel's office seeks to assign blame for events President Trump did not control and took action to protect against. Yes, he doesn't know how Jan 6 got out of control. I don't know. Start with, you had all the people on the ellipse during your speech you knew were armed because the Secret Service told you they were, and you told them to get rid of the metal detectors and the magnetometers, and you knew they were armed, and you pointed them all whipped up in a frenzy, frothing at the mouth, and you pointed them at the Capitol, knowing or you should know, or knowing or should know that there were no National Guard there. It was just Met Police and Capitol Police. You are the commander-in-chief. Maybe that. But then he had, this is on page 1. They couldn't even get out of page 1 of this new filing without mentioning the dreaded Nancy Pelosi, the real scourge of American democracy, Nancy Pelosi. Here you go. It is apparently of no consequence to the office, the Department of Justice, and those who support their efforts, that former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, was caught on a previously undisclosed video accepting responsibility, wait for this, for the events at the Capitol. Let's start with that. Nancy Pelosi was in the back of a car doing a documentary with her daughter. I think she was coming out of the carnage of Jan 6 when this happened. So she had a couple of things on her mind. Her husband hadn't yet been hammered literally by a MAGA follower of Donald Trump yet and suffered brain damage. Not yet, but it's coming. And so in it, under her muffled mask, you hear her say, because she is the Speaker of the House, and the Sergeant at Arms does ultimately report to her, and they should have had some sort of plan, assuming that MAGA would have overwhelmed the Capitol. But she's not the commander-in-chief, and she has no power to call out the National Guard. You know who that is? You know who's the sole person in America who can call out the National Guard? Wait for it. The commander-in-chief, the president of the United States, not the Speaker of the House. She's busy hiding under her desk with Chuck Schumer and trying to call to the Virginia National Guard nearby to help them. SOS. Let's watch the clip first of Nancy Pelosi that they've talk about silly putty. They've stretched it out of all recognition or understanding or reality. This one simple statement she made, in which as an adult, she said, I take some responsibility. Sergeant of Arms should have had a better plan. We should have had more coordination. We should have expected that Donald Trump's crazies would attack democracy. But to blame Nancy Pelosi is, as I've said before, it's like an arsonist sets fire to a house and you're blaming the family for not calling the fire department fast enough. Let's run the clip of Nancy Pelosi. I got two clips. Let's run the first clip of Nancy Pelosi in the documentary that he recites here, Donald Trump in the brief. Let's run it.
Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with? I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more.
The video, shot by Pelosi's daughter, Alexandra Pelosi, for an HBO documentary. Pelosi telling MSNBC the video is Republicans' attempt to rewrite history.
The former president and his toadies do not want to face the facts. They're trying to do revisionist history on January 6th.
Now, let's put that in context, because we don't cherry pick on Legal AF or on MeidasTouch Network. There's also a clip in real time on January 6th of Nancy Pelosi making a phone call, a desperate phone call to the governor of Virginia, Jay Northam, asking him to roll out his National Guard, under which because there the governors control the state National Guard. And here's that clip. Let's roll that.
Hi, Governor. This is Nancy. Governor, I don't know if you have been approached about the Virginia National Guard. Mr. Hoyer was speaking to Governor Hogan. But I still think you probably need the okay of the federal government in order to come into another jurisdiction. Thank you. Oh my gosh, they're just breaking windows. They're doing all kinds of. It's really that they said somebody was shot. It's just horrendous, and all at the instigation of the President of the United States. Okay, thank you, Governor. I appreciate what you're doing, and if you don't mind, I'd like to stay in touch. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Virginia Guard has been called in.
You know, I'm just talking to Governor Northam, and what he said is they sent 200 state police and a unit of the National Guard.
So all it is Nancy taking responsibility as an adult, not letting Donald Trump off the hook. The arsonist is still going to be convicted of the crime just because the victim maybe should have made one more phone call. Come on. So as a kid, I loved eating cereal. But as an adult, I don't want all that sugar, and most cereals don't give me the protein I need. Then I found Magic Spoon, a nostalgically delicious cereal that tastes just like my childhood favorites, but without the sugar and with a ton of protein. And if you're already a Magic Spoon fan, I got big news. Magic Spoon has turned their super popular cereal into high-protein treats that are light, crispy, and taste just like those classic crunchy cereal bars. Magic Spoon's brand new treats are so delicious, they've already become my favorite before and after gym snack. Every serving of Magic Spoon cereal has 13 grams of protein, 0 grams of sugar, and 4 grams of net carbs, so you can feel good about what you're eating. The most popular flavors are fruity and cocoa, and there's so many more. Magic Spoon's brand new treats are crispy, crunchy, airy, and an easy way to get 11 grams of protein on the go. And for the first time ever, Magic Spoon treats are available in grocery stores with delicious flavors like marshmallow and chocolatey peanut butter. My favorite is Magic Spoon's chocolatey peanut butter treats. And by the way, they're my wife's favorite too. They're our favorite late night snack. Get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/legalaf or look for Magic Spoon in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/legalaf for $5 off. Magic Spoon, hold on to the dream. Now, Mark Millie, why am I mentioning him? Former head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Army General, I think he's 4-star, a lot of brass for Donald Trump, because Mark Millie and Donald Trump are like Superman and Lex Luthor, and Mark Millie is Superman. Mark Millie has gone out on the record and testified that Donald Trump was a coward who cowered in the dining room and let Washington burn because he was upset and sucking his thumb over losing the election. Called him a coward. Said that Donald Trump was going to go to war with other countries, but that Mark Millie stepped in and made sure that didn't happen. That Mark Millie testified that he called his counterpart in China and basically said, you know that crazy president we have? Don't worry, I'm not going to let us go to war. I'm not going to let us go to war because he woke up one morning in a bad mood. Donald Trump didn't like that. And then Donald Trump attacked Mark Millie, said he should be hanged and shot. And then in addition to that, as part of Mar-a-Lago and that investigation, we know that the Mark Millie comments reported in the New Yorker magazine triggered Donald Trump to show off his top secret classified maps and war plans and try to accuse Mark Millie of being the one that wanted to start a war, and he was trying to stop him. It's always somebody else. You know, he's like the 4-year-old. It's somebody else broke the vase or the window. It wasn't little Donnie Trump. Here's what he says about Mark Millie. He said, even one of the office's star witnesses, see, he knows who one of the 71 witnesses are. Good for him. General Mark Millie acknowledged long before charges were even brought in this case that President Trump had instructed the Defense Department on Jan 3 to make sure that you have sufficient National Guard or soldiers to make sure it's a safe event. That is a complete lie. I know it because the Secretary of Defense under Donald Trump testified that Donald Trump never gave an order for 10,000 or 20,000 people. I think it's interesting. They're not saying that anymore. Donald Trump still says on the campaign trail that he ordered 10,000 or 20,000 National Guards people. They dropped that in this brief. Let's run the clip of Donald Trump with his bullshit 10,000 and 20,000 clip.
The 25th Amendment, they said, Joe, you're going to get out. And Nancy Pelosi led the charge. And Nancy Pelosi has a little problem because her husband sold their Visa stock. They had a lot of Visa stock one day before Visa was announced that Visa is being sued by the Department of Justice. Think of that. Nancy Pelosi sold vast amounts of Visa stock one day before the big lawsuit that we all read about a few days ago was brought against Visa. You think it was luck? I don't think. She should be prosecuted. Nancy Pelosi should be prosecuted for that. And she should also be prosecuted for J6 because she turned down 10,000 or any number she wanted, soldiers or National Guard. And I hope you all read John Solomon and what John Solomon wrote 2 days ago, because if you read it, you'd see that Donald Trump did absolutely nothing wrong. It's a scam. It's a scam.
See, no mention of that. And they also don't mention what Mark Millie really said about the dereliction of duty that he observed and the cowardice he observed of Donald Trump, because he sat for almost 3 hours in the dining room of the White House while the Capitol burned and didn't do a darn thing to stop the carnage. 5 people died, hundreds of cops injured. Some people died after the fact, some heart attacks, suicide, and the taking of a life, the unborn, the unliving of people. So, look, let's run the clip of Mark Millie.
Yeah, you're the Commander-in-Chief. You got an assault going on the Capitol of the United States of America. And there's nothing. No call, nothing, zero.
So at the end, what their argument should be, they finally get into it on page 2, when they basically say that the evidence that is falsified in the false certificates are really not false certificate evidence, the way that term is used under 1512 of the statute. It's a complicated argument, but they're basically saying, Fisher, you can't prosecute me for obstruction of an official proceeding, 2 of the 4 counts against Donald Trump, because I didn't have the corrupt intent to obstruct, and this type of fake evidence isn't the type of fake evidence that Fisher allows to continue to be prosecuted. I disagree. Ketanji Brown Jackson disagrees. Justice Sotomayor, who used to be Judge Sotomayor, in a Second Circuit case that was cited by this United States Supreme Court, even this Chief Justice Roberts, Sotomayor and Ketanji Brown Jackson was able to get him to put on page 8 of the Fisher brief, so pretty early on, that if you're talking about false evidence or fake evidence or as used as part of the obstruction, then you can be charged. What they didn't like, what Fisher renounced, what Fisher ruled, is that the government can't use it as a catch-all for conspiracies of any kind of obstruction, because there's already statutes for that. There has to be specific crimes that are the object of this particular statute. That should be the argument. That should be the makeup of this 14 pages. But it's not. It's Mark Millie was mean to me, and Nancy Pelosi was mean to me, and this is my vendetta list I'm checking off, and that's masquerading as a new filing with Judge Chutkan. Let me tell you what's going to happen next. There's one more brief coming in this, just one more. It's going to be on the, let me get the dates right here, on the 17th of October. The Department of Justice gets to file their last brief, the last word here, and that's it. Judge doesn't want any more briefs. No more reply briefs. She gave 2 briefs. And then she's going to decide. And she's going to decide that the statutory grounds, including under Fisher, allow the 4 counts to go against Donald Trump, that this false evidence and fake evidence survives. I'd be shocked if she dismisses 2 of the counts, finding Fisher. And this is exactly what the Supreme Court asked and commanded Judge Chutkan to do. They said, you got to do 2 things. You got to take all of this evidence and place it into immunity buckets and figure out if the superseding indictment or the indictment survives. And there's a way to do that with the analysis. And they gave her guidance on how to do that. And the 165 pages from the government will help. And whatever Donald Trump wipes his backside with and files won't help. And the judge will make the ultimate decision. She makes the ultimate decision. They also, the Supreme Court told her, you got to figure out whether the 2 of the counts for obstruction of an official proceeding survive our Fisher decision. And she's going to do that too. And that's the briefing we're watching now. We'll continue to watch it all. We have an audience that loves what we do, and we love our audience on Legal AF. And we have so much to talk about at the intersection of law and politics that Legal AF and MeidasTouch got together and said, we need another channel. We need another channel and an outlet to discuss law and politics. So we formed it. It's called Legal AF MTN for MeidasTouch Network. And it's on YouTube. So look at Legal AF MTN, free subscribe. We're getting close to 200,000 subscribers in our first month. We're not even a month old. I can't even blow out 1 candle, but you can help us get to 200,000. And that'll signal that you like this pro-democracy channel that we're doing in collaboration with the MeidasTouch Network. You like our commentators there. You like our analysis. We don't blow smoke or sunshine at that intersection. We got a great new show, for instance, called Unprecedented, about the United States Supreme Court. I'm doing it once a week with a revolving group of great commentators, kicking off with Dina Dahl. And then we got a new surprise, only found on Legal AF MTN, Court Accountability. Yes, an amazing organization run by Alex Aronson and other great people. Pro-democracy are coming on Legal AF MTN on a regular basis and contributing hot takes and analysis and episodes of Unprecedented and the like. And you're going to be seeing that very soon. So pleased. Court Accountability. Follow them over on Legal AF MTN. So until my next hot take, my next podcast, Legal AF, my next exclusive content with Legal AF MTN. This is Michael Popok, and I'm reporting. In collaboration with the MeidasTouch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.